not a bad thing. You got a venue for water to get into the surface. But this is kind of a common thing. Barry and Ray, you can correct me if I'm wrong because I'm just the dumb soil scientist in the group. But you do see this a lot in what I've seen in no-till situations. You do get what most farmers frequently refer to as fairly ugly structure. They like that little granular powdery surface to get good seed contact. This is not uncommon to see this. It's probably also not bad because once you get down below here, your structure is getting better. It's not like you've got a plate down in here that the water is going to come in, it's going to go through that structure that they tilled up, it's going to hit that plate and sit. And it's going to stop right there. It's not going to get down in here, whereas the material in here, once it struggles its way through these plates, it'll shoot right down at all the root channels and everything else that you have.
But even in those plates, if you're not disturbing it every year, you're going to have channels that go through those plates. So I think that was the question about can you see perforations in some of those shallow plates? And if you've got root channels or earthworms that are going through there, the fact that it's a little denser is not fatal because you've got other pores that are piercing through it.
For those of you that, Amy, you want to pass this around, the thing that you should notice here is you've got the root stalks coming right here. So this is a surface bed. But if you look, there are a couple of root channels that come out right up at the surface. So he does have that condition here.
Well, nobody pointed out my nightcrawler channel. There's a green golf team right here.
They were just being polite.
Oh, okay.
That's their story and they're sticking to it.
Okay, all right. So no, I mean, at least half of the groups were noticing nightcrawler channels down here. But the other day I did, which of course you can't see from that side, but nice nightcrawler channel down here, 3 feet deep, 4 feet deep, with casting material. And so again, this area right there is probably in the filter strip, but that's going to be really, really valuable for getting water flow and root development down deep in the soil. So.
All right, I've got a couple of things that jump out of the history of the soil to be. I always like to make sure I get a really good background from the farmer. What have they been doing? And there was a couple of things that no one mentioned that I can think of, so I'm going to try to focus on things that no one else mentioned. Can you all see this right here? What's a practice they said they've been doing that might have created that little layer right there?
Manure injection.
And remember how he described his manure injection device? What was it? Those of you are familiar with it's a Dietrich, okay? It's a Dietrich with a sweep at the bottom, a sweep. You understand what a sweep is? So it's a vertical, it comes down, it causes low surface disturbance, but the bottom is flat, okay? It's creating a cavity so all that manure has place to go underneath the soil. That's how a Dietrich works, okay? So there is a shank that's been running, not very deep, but right here. We're right down the dead center of the bulk of the row where that shank would be running, lifting this and putting manure underneath. But that can, if there's any moisture there at all, steel in contact with soil makes clay pot. You know, that's just how it works. So that is something that now we've got to try our very best to have the cover crops, the other things to counteract any negative that might have happened from that piece of steel in contact with the soil. The manure is a good thing, and that actual biology will actually help, but that can show up. He's doing what he needs to do, or as much as we know to do, to counteract that contact with the steel. The other thing is, I look out across here, while we can see some pieces of 2-year-old corn, they're very, very small, very breaking down very rapidly. I'm seeing excellent breakdown and cycling of the organic matter. When you look out across there, if you walk out in there, you'd almost like to see more residue. And here's a no-till field that, you know, the corn stalks aren't coming in the windows of the house. They're building up so much, like the stories we hear. So we've got really, really good biological activity that is breaking down that residues and cycling those nutrients back and creating good humus at the surface that is going to be a high quality organic matter that that's what we're shooting for. So look for the residue cycling. If you did see corn stalks up to your knees out there, I'd be a little concerned about the biological activity, okay? So you got good things going on there. Another little device I use when I'm out in the field sometimes, we carry these around a lot. Well, I'll try to not kill myself. This is such you can perform your own little mini slate test just to check. A lot of times we meet with a farmer and we ask them, what have you been doing? They say, no-till. You need to know, does he really no-till, and is it quality no-till, and is everything going on? So you might just reach down, look into the soil just a little bit, whether they're with you or whether they're not, and you perform, if this is dry enough, you can kind of just put it in here, hold that, look at it, see if that thing's just exploding or if it's going to hold together, okay? You can use that kind of a little quick trick pretty easily to give yourself an idea. If you grab a piece of soil off the surface of somebody that's still doing vertical tillage or no-tilling only every other year, that ped's probably not going to hold there that long. It's going to melt away pretty quick. Okay, so you can use just whatever you got with you to kind of give yourself an idea what's going on out there in the soil. Okay, I'm shaking that around and it's still just kind of holding together, and the water's really not even clouding up. Okay, good little indicator you can use on an impromptu basis. I like, where's my pitchfork? Okay, I really like a pitchfork because it doesn't disturb, and a lot of the group, the first place I go a lot of times is right to the bottom of the pit. I want to see if I see roots down deep immediately. And if I do, I'm pretty encouraged. And then I follow some of that back up. But what I really like to point out, if I can find it, if we know they've been using no-till for a long time and cover crops for a long time, a lot of times you can point out that, is this year's corn root or last year's? Now it's been here open, it's dried out. Sometimes you can find 3 different plants, roots, down one of these deep no-till paths that show you that all of the roots are getting to use that and expand that and leave behind nutrients, allow for air and water movement, and allow for deep sequestration of nitrogen. You're covering the biological diversity, the aeration, the deep sequestration of carbon. You're covering a lot of things real quick as you see all those different roots using the same macropore and using the same part of the soil profile. So use wetting agents if you've got. These are really nice. You can just see so much more when you wet the surface just a little bit. Soil scientists are good at that. Don't be afraid to look for some of the little compaction layers. Some of those are remnants from when it was still conventional tillage or minimum tillage, or a pass that you know, a fertilizer or a manure knife or something like that. Don't be afraid to look for those and point those out. It's okay to talk about how are we going to fix, even good fields can be fixed further. So
you're on an end row too, right, Barry? I would assume if you went in the middle, it might not be as bad.
I would guess, you know, this is where all the equipment comes and goes. We're in as compact an area as we can. And anytime if you're going to have a field day, try your best to get off, but you have to have respect for the farmers. You know, they got to deal with this hole. When this hole gets closed up, it's going to settle for the next 2 or 3 years. They got to fight around this and deal with it. So we do have to kind of use good judgment there. The other thing that we've got, and I really like having this here where we've got crops here. We've got a pretty diverse filter strip here, so you can show different roots in the same pit, and don't be afraid to use that as a comparison. All right.